Hi, I'm Casherie Bright, and I am a therapist at Neurofeedback and Counseling Center of Utah. I have a master's in mental health counseling, and I have been working in mental health for like my whole grown-up life, basically. I am fully licensed in the state of Utah, and I provide coaching to people who live in Germany and also in different parts of the United States. My husband and I own a group practice, Neurofeedback and Counseling of Utah. We own that, and we have several counselors that work for us. Brandy runs our office while we're in Germany. So we've got Brandy and we've got Kit as our full-time therapists, and we have Bree and Allie and Christy who also work for us. We have a really great neurofeedback technician. Her name is Jenny. She is BCIA certified. Kit is also BCIA certified, and so is Jeff at the master's level. And then we have Chelsea, who is the star of the show. She runs everything. She also does neurofeedback work for us too. We want to start every video by explaining that we are mental health counselors or social workers on this video feed, and we are not providing medical advice. We're not providing diagnoses. We're not telling you what you should do in therapy or anything. We're not giving you medical advice, and we highly encourage that people seek medical advice if they need it. And if they feel like they need counseling, we're happy to have you come in office. In order to see us at our practice, we do a consultation as the first session, and that consultation is with a licensed clinician in order to determine your appropriateness for therapy as well as possibly for neurofeedback. A lot of times people get confused when they come to our office. They think that we're going to prescribe medications, things like that, which we don't do. We're not licensed to do. So the consultation is a great way to figure out what your needs are and see if we're a good fit for that. Today I want to talk about anger and where anger comes from. So I'm going to use a whiteboard, and I think we can see it here. So anger comes, a lot of people know anger as a secondary emotion, but a lot of time anger comes from fear. A lot of the times we have these underlying fears. Usually these fears are a fear of loss or a fear of failure or a fear of change. Those are like the biggest things that we see. And what happens when you have anger is a lot of people that have depression and anxiety have underlying anger. And underneath that depression and anxiety is this anger, which underneath the anger is fear. So fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of change. Sometimes anger, once you start working on your anger, you become less depressed, less anxious, but sometimes people actually experience more anger. And that will sometimes come out as rage or explosions or irritability. And usually what these anger, rage, depression, anxiety, what they have a function, and what they're usually trying to do is they're trying to give you power. And power is a key role in anger. And a lot of times when we have this fear, this loss, this failure, this change, these are things that we don't have control over. So we have a loss of control when we have this anger. And the power from depression, anxiety, rage is a way to try to control whatever it is that we're afraid of. And then what's underneath all this depression, anxiety, feeling of power, normally these are fueled by negative thoughts. So when we do therapy, a lot of times we're looking at what are the negative thoughts that a person is having. So you've got the negative thoughts there. And the negative thoughts are often directly related to whatever this fear is. They're directly related to the fear of loss or failure or change. And underneath that is certain beliefs that we have about ourselves. So over here, I'm going to write beliefs. So then you've got beliefs here. In therapy, we try to do two things. We try to identify the negative thoughts, and we try to identify the beliefs. We recognize that people have depression, anxiety, rage, or other problems, but a lot of times they are rooted in these fears about power and control. So in therapy, we will try to map out those beliefs and those negative thoughts. We can start to change some of those thoughts and some of those beliefs, which then will change your depression, your anxiety, the anger you're feeling, the rage that you have. And then it gives you more of a sense of control over what's happening in your life. Because when we're running off of our emotions, we're running by fear, we actually lose control over what we do sometimes. And so I see a lot of clients that will say, I don't know why I'm like this. I don't like being like this. I would never choose this. And it feels to them like they're out of control. And so as therapists, one of our goals is to try to figure out how we can help you feel like you're in more control. And it's interesting because the thing that we're afraid of is a loss of control. But then all of the things that we do show that we don't have control. So I want to give you an example about this kind of how this works in therapy. So let's say that you've got just a regular case of depression. It's really normal for women, men to feel like they're not good enough. So you have the negative thought, I'm not good enough. In this example, we've got a parent, and when their kids misbehave, they overreact, which reinforces their idea that they're not good enough. And then they use that idea, that example of overreacting with their kids, as another example of why they're not good enough. And they use that to be mean to themselves or to belittle themselves. Instead, I think the function of some of these negative thoughts is that they want us to do better. So instead of like yelling at our kids, having the thought I'm not good enough should motivate me to be better. But in all reality, that's not the way it works. That negative thought leads us to actually being more out of control, being more negative, and just feeling like you're worse and you're stuck in the behavior, you're stuck in the pattern. But if we look at the fear that's behind that, if we look at the fear that parent has, you can see that they're afraid of failure. I'm not good enough is usually related to failure, and they're afraid of failing as a mom or a dad. Also, maybe the fear that their kids won't be successful. And then, it's interesting because if you look at this from these thought patterns or beliefs from a logical perspective, you could say that I know that yelling at my kids won't make my kids successful. Logically, people know that. But it gives you the feeling that you're in control. But the reality is, one of the ways to challenge negative thoughts is to look at the reality. And the reality is that you don't have control. No one is really in control of their kids, really. You can't control another human being. You can't control your kids. You can't control your husband. You can't control your boss. You're not in control of another person. But for some reason, as parents, as people, we feel like we need to be in control. So one of the things we would do in therapy is to try to figure out why. Why do I need to feel in control? Where is this coming from? I can see that when I yell at my kids, they have the idea that I'm a mean person. They don't like me. It pushes them away from me, which isn't what I want either, isn't what the parent wants either. And so we help the parent to see that their behavior is not only pushing their child away, but it also is making them be less in control. In therapy, if we only worked on the negative thought, I'm a failure, then we wouldn't really see the whole picture. We wouldn't see so it's really important that we look at situations where this comes up, and then we look at what's the belief behind that. And I think it's hard because when we're, just as everyday people, when we're triggered, we're in that moment, it's hard for us to see what our behavior is doing, what it's motivated by, what the beliefs are behind it. And that's really where working with a therapist can help you to figure out why am I doing this? Why am I stuck in this pattern? And how to change that. And you can come up with a plan for how to change that pattern. That's a little bit of what we do in therapy. We would love to see what we can do to help you. These are just some things to think about. Think about how control and anger might be impacting you and how it might be leading you to choices that you don't agree with. I hope people found that helpful. And if you're interested in services with us, you can call our office and talk to Chelsea. And our number is 801-855-7999. You can also schedule an appointment on our website at www.ntcutah.com. Leave a comment if this was something that you found helpful. Thanks. Bye.